The first thing she felt was the blood rushing to her head, and the second thing was the fire tearing through her legs as the rope cut deeper with every breath. She was hanging upside down from a cottonwood tree, her ankles bound tight, her dress falling toward her shoulders, the summer sun burning her skin while the ground hovered just out of reach. It wasn't the usual hang-in folks whisper about in frontier towns. This was a meaner trick, meant to ruin a person without leaving the clean mark of a neck rope. Cattle thieves and hard men sometimes used it when they wanted a victim limping, ashamed, and too scared to talk. Flies circled her face, dust crept into her mouth, and every heartbeat sent another wave of pain crashing into her calves and knees. She tried to scream, but the sound came out thin, swallowed by the wide Kansas sky. Minutes felt like hours. Her legs had gone past numb and straight into agony, the kind that makes a person fear they might never stand again. Below her, the dry grass barely moved, and beyond it, the Arkansas River shimmered like it did not care whether she lived or died. She swallowed hard and forced herself to stay awake. If she blacked out, she knew what came next. They would come back, and they would decide whether the rope stayed on her ankles or moved to her neck. Footsteps crunched somewhere nearby, not fast ones, careful ones. A man stood beneath her, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a sweat-darkened shirt and a battered hat pulled low. He did not rush, he did not shout. He simply looked up at her hanging body, at the purple marks already blooming around her ankles, and his jaw tightened. Her voice shook when she spoke, but she made herself say it anyway. "I've been aching down there." She did not mean anything improper. She meant her legs. She meant the rope, burns at her ankles, the kind that can turn a strong young woman into a cripple by sundown. She meant the way the rope had been biting into bone and tendon for far too long. She meant the pain that had turned sharp, then dull, then terrifying. The man kept looking, his eyes moving from the knots in the rope to the way her hands trembled when she tried to steady herself. Then he did something no sensible man would do. He reached for his knife. At that exact moment, a faint thunder rolled across the plain. Hoofbeats, more than one horse, coming closer. The man hesitated for half a second, long enough to know what saving her would cost him. Then he cut the rope anyway. She dropped, but not hard. He twisted his body, shoved a saddle and his own coat beneath her, and took the weight through his arms and shoulders. Pain exploded through her legs as blood rushed back. So fierce, she screamed despite herself. He dragged her into the tall grass by the riverbank, keeping low, breathing slow, while riders passed just far enough away to miss them. The dust settled. The hoofbeats faded. Only then did the man look at her again. That was how Clara Mae Whitfield met Elijah Carver, on a blistering summer day in Kansas, with her world upside down and her legs screaming in protest. Before we go any further, I want to be honest with you. This story has been carefully collected and retold from historical fragments, frontier accounts, and regional records. Some details have been adjusted to bring out clearer lessons, deeper emotion, and stronger meaning, while keeping the spirit of the era intact. All visual imagery used to accompany this story is generated by AI to heighten atmosphere and help you feel what words alone sometimes cannot. If this kind of story is not for you, it is perfectly fine to step away now. Get some rest and take care of your health. But if it speaks to you even a little, leave a comment so I know to keep finding and telling stories like this for you. Clara lay on her side, gasping, tears cutting clean lines through the dust on her cheeks. Her legs throbbed, pins and needles racing through muscles that had nearly given up. Elijah knelt beside her, working fast, loosening the rope, rubbing her ankles just enough to bring warmth back without causing more damage. "You can't stand," he said quietly. It was not a question. She shook her head. "I can crawl," she whispered. "That'll do," he answered. He did not ask her name. He did not ask why she had been strung up like an animal. Out here, questions could wait. Survival could not. They stayed hidden until the sun slid lower and the heat softened just enough to breathe. Only then did Clara speak again, her voice steadier now, edged with anger instead of fear. "They wanted me quiet," she said. "They wanted me scared enough to leave." Elijah glanced toward the distant tree where the rope still dangled from the branch. "That's not how you scare someone," he said. "That's how you make sure they never forget." She told him just enough to matter. She had been riding alone toward Dodge City with papers she should not have had. Papers that showed landlines where powerful men claimed there were none. Men who did not like being questioned. Men who used ropes before they used words. Elijah listened, his expression unreadable. The lines in his face cut deep by years of sun and disappointment. He knew the type. Kansas was full of them. "What happens if they catch you again?" he asked. Clara didn't answer right away. She looked down at her legs, at the red and purple rings circling her ankles like brands. Then she met his eyes. "They won't bother with the rope next time." That was when Elijah understood exactly how much trouble had dropped into his path. Helping her meant crossing men who owned deputies, judges, and half the water in the county. Letting her go meant leaving her to die. Slowly or quickly, it hardly mattered. He stood, offering his shoulder. "We move when it's dark," he said, "toward Dodge City." She swallowed. "The law there isn't clean." He gave a tired half-smile. It never is. As the sun sank and the cicadas started up, Elijah Carver made a choice that would follow him to the edge of a noose. The loss of everything he owned, and a love he never expected to find this late in his life. And here's the question I want you to sit with before we go on. When the law is crooked and saving one life means risking your own, would you still cut the rope? They waited until the sun dropped low enough that the heat loosened its grip on the land. The river beside them slowed to a lazy murmur, and the grass stopped crackling under every movement. Clara lay half hidden in the reeds, her legs stretched out in front of her, trembling now and then as feeling crept back in uneven waves. She was thirsty, lightheaded, and running on stubbornness more than strength. Pain like that does not leave all at once. It lingers. It reminds you of itself every time you think you might be safe. Elijah stayed close, but did not hover. He had learned long ago that fear settles faster when it is not crowded. He tore a strip from his shirt and wrapped her ankles again, looser this time, enough to protect the skin without cutting off the blood. "You'll walk again," he said. "Not today, but again." She nodded, biting down on the urge to ask when, out here. When did not matter as much as whether. They moved slow, too slow to look like prey, too steady to look like fugitives. Elijah led his horse and let Clara lean on his shoulder, step by careful step, stopping when her breath shortened or her knees buckled every few yards. She glanced back at the cottonwood tree. The rope still hung there, swaying gently, like a warning left behind on purpose. "They do that to make a point," she said quietly. Elijah did not ask who they were. He already knew. Men with land to steal always left signs. "Whoever tied that knot didn't expect you to die quick," he said. "That was meant to last." She swallowed. "That's what scared me." They reached a shallow bend in the river, where the ground dipped low and the reeds grew thick. Elijah knelt and dipped his hat into the water, letting her drink first. Only then did she tell him what she was carrying. Not everything, just enough. Her father had been a surveyor, the kind who measured land honestly even when powerful men asked him not to. He had mapped a stretch near Dodge City where a new rail line was planned, and the numbers did not match what certain ranchers claimed to own. Those ranchers did not argue with words, they argued with fear. "My father said land remembers," Clara said, "even if people lie about it." Elijah gave a soft grunt. "That sounds like a man who made enemies." "He did," she answered. "And now they think I'm easier to deal with." The men who caught her had searched her saddlebags, torn her papers, cursed when they did not find what they wanted. They had left her hanging when they heard riders coming, confident the rope and the sun would finish the job. What they did not know was that the most important page was not with her. That page had been mailed weeks earlier to a doctor in Dodge City, a man her father trusted, Doc Harlan. Elijah paused at the name. He knew Doc. Most people did. If you lived long enough in Dodge City, Doc Harlan had stitched you up, cooled your fever, or told you to stop doing whatever foolish thing you were doing. "He still owes me for a mule," Elijah said. That almost made her smile. Almost. They rested again as the sky darkened. the first stars blinking awake like quiet witnesses. Elijah scanned the horizon, not with panic, but with the habit of someone who had survived long stretches of bad luck. "The men you ran into," he said, "they won't quit." "I know," Claire replied. "And if they see you with me, they'll say you took me. They can say what they like," he said. "What matters is who believes it." She looked at him then, really looked, at the lines around his eyes, at the way he moved like a man who had been hurt before and learned how not to show it. "You don't have to do this," she said. He met her gaze, steady as the river. "I already did." They started again, keeping low, keeping quiet, moving toward the faint glow on the horizon that marked the road to Dodge City. Every sound carried farther now. A branch snapping, a nightbird lifting off. Once, distant hoofbeats made them freeze, but they faded, heading the wrong way. For the first time since the rope had tightened around her ankles, Clara allowed herself to breathe fully. She did not say it out loud, but she knew one thing for certain. Saving her had already cost Elijah Carver something. Even if neither of them could see the price yet. And before we go on, let me say this. If you are finding yourself pulled into this story, if it feels like the kind you want to hear through to the end, take a moment and subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep bringing you these long-form frontier stories and told slow and honest in the way they deserve. Now take a sip of your tea or coffee, settle in a little deeper, and tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and where you are listening from, because the road into Dodge City is about to get a whole lot more dangerous, and this is where the real trouble begins. The road into Dodge City looked peaceful from a distance. That is how trouble likes to present itself. A soft line of lights on the horizon, a faint promise of water and a roof, and the kind of quiet that makes a tired person believe they might be safe. Elijah and Clara kept moving anyway because neither of them was foolish enough to trust a pretty view at night. Clara leaned on him more than she wanted to. Her ankles had stopped screaming, but the ache was still there. Deep and stubborn. The sort of pain that reminds you every step that you are not in charge right now. Elijah did not complain. He had the steady patience of a man who had dragged more than one broken thing back to life. They stayed off the main track. They used the river when they could, the grass when they could not. And they kept their voices low. The closer they got to town, the more they saw signs of other people. A broken crate near a wagon rut, a cold fire ring, a whiskey bottle tossed into the weeds, and then the sound that changed everything. Hoofbeats, close, not fading this time, coming straight toward them. Elijah froze and pulled Clara down behind a low cut in the bank. He held his breath long enough to hear the rhythm. 2 riders, maybe 3. Moving careful, not rushed, like men who already knew where they were headed. Clara pressed her face against the grass. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might give her away. The riders passed in the dark just 30 yards out, and even without moonlight, Elijah caught what mattered. One of them wore a badge, not a shiny one, a worn piece of law that had seen dust and sweat. Clara felt Elijah stiffen. "You said the law in Dodge City isn't clean," he whispered. She nodded. "I didn't say it was all dirty," she whispered back, "but enough of it is." They waited until the hoofbeats fell away, then moved again. Quicker now, the way you move when you know the wolves are circling, while Elijah kept them hidden. The men chasing them were doing the opposite. They were making noise on purpose. Back near that cottonwood tree, Deputy Roy Pritchard had ridden up with 2 men at his side, the kind with hard eyes and soft morals. Roy dismounted, looked at the dangling rope, and smiled like he had just found a missing coin. He crouched, touched the cut end, and let the fibers run through his fingers. "Carver," he said. One of his men frowned. "You sure?" Roy stood and brushed his hands off on his pants. "Sure enough." He pointed at the tracks. A horse, a man, a dragged heel, and a smaller set of prints that stumbled. Roy did not need the truth. He only needed a story that fit the direction he wanted. He looked at the men and spoke like he was handing out bread. "Word is a young woman got taken," he said. "Word is rancher Elijah Carver was seen near the river." That was all it took. A lie told with confidence, a badge to make it sound official. and by sunrise, half the folks within a day's ride would be repeating it like gospel. Elijah and Clara made it to an old stopover spot not far from a bend in the Santa Fe Trail. Not a town, not even a proper camp. Just a tired place where wagons sometimes rested, where a man might find a bucket, a scrap of rope, maybe a forgotten sack of oats, if he was lucky. Elijah checked the area before letting Clara sit. He found a half-full water barrel and a broken crate that could serve as a seat. Clara drank, then held the cup in both hands like it was the most valuable thing on earth. Elijah's horse blew out a long breath, relieved for the pause. That is when another figure stepped out from the dark. Quiet as a coyote, a man with a long coat, a gun belt that sat like it belonged there, and a way of standing that said he was not surprised to see them. He was not smiling, but he did not look angry either. He looked tired. The kind of tired that comes from chasing people for a living. "Evening," the stranger said. His voice was calm, almost polite. Elijah did not reach for his gun. He kept his hands where they could be seen. He placed himself between the man and Clara without making a show of it. "Evening," Elijah replied. The stranger's eyes flicked to Clara's ankles, to the wrapped skin, to the way her feet twitched like her body still remembered the rope. Then his gaze returned to Elijah. "Name's Cole Bennett," he said. "I'm paid to bring folks in." Elijah did not blink. "Who's paying you?" Cole let out a short breath, like he already hated the answer. "Deputy in Dodge City," he said. "Roy Pritchard." Clara's grip tightened on the cup. Elijah's voice stayed even. "What did he say we did?" Cole tilted his head. "He said you took her," he answered. "He said she's scared and you're dangerous." Clara almost laughed, but it came out as a rough sound. "Dangerous," she muttered. Cole watched her for a moment. He did not like what he saw. He had expected a frightened girl tied up with a villain. Instead, he saw a young woman with bruised ankles and dust on her face, sitting beside a man who looked more protective than predatory. Cole's eyes narrowed. "Let me see your ankles," he said. Clara stiffened. Elijah's tone sharpened. "No." Cole raised a hand, slow, like he was calming a horse. "I'm not asking for fun," he said. "I'm asking because I've seen knots before." He stepped closer, careful not to startle them. Clara swallowed and shifted her feet forward just enough. Cole crouched and studied the wrappings, the bruising, and the marks left by the rope. Then he frowned at something small, a pattern in the fibers, a particular kind of twist. He leaned in, then sat back on his heels. "That knot," he said quietly. "I've seen it on Kincaid rope. Kincaid didn't just sell rope, he sold trouble. And he paid men like me to look the other way. I did one job for his outfit years back, and I swore I'd never do a second. My brother tried to quit, and he ended up dead on a road nobody bothered to measure. So no, I don't switch sides for pity. I switch when I smell Kincaid on the air." Elijah's eyes hardened. Silas Kincaid was not a name most men said lightly. Cole looked up at Elijah. "You know him," Cole said. Elijah nodded once. "I know what he is." Clara's shoulders lowered a fraction. Elijah studied Cole the way a rancher studies a storm, not just for thunder, but for direction. Cole stood and dusted off his hands. "I should take you in," he said. "That's how I eat. But if I hand you to Roy, you'll be dead by sundown, and Kincaid will stay rich. I'd rather get paid later by watching Kincaid fall." Then he glanced toward the dark line of the horizon, where Dodge City lights trembled. "But I don't like being used." Elijah took one slow step forward. "And I don't like men who hang girls from trees." Cole held Elijah's gaze. For a heartbeat, neither man moved. Then Cole hooked a thumb over his shoulder. "There's a back way into town," he said. "Less eyes, more hiding places." Elijah did not relax yet. "Why help us?" he asked. Cole shrugged, but his eyes stayed serious. "'Cause Roy's lying," he said. "And because if Kincaid is involved,